It began with a quiet summons to a private estate office, one that few outside the royal household even knew had taken place. Executors, legal advisors, and senior palace representatives arrived separately, avoiding attention. But when word spread that Prince Philip's long-protected wishes concerning Bagshot Park had finally been reviewed, even seasoned royal observers were stunned. What many assumed had already been settled was suddenly reopened, and at the center of the unfolding controversy stood Lady Louise Windsor. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. For years, Bagshot Park had existed in a strange position within the royal landscape. It was known, respected, and quietly admired. Yet it rarely attracted the kind of attention reserved for Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, or Balmoral. That was precisely why the sudden interest surrounding it felt so unusual. Palace insiders reportedly found themselves asking the same question: why now? Why would a matter connected to Prince Philip's estate generate such an unexpected wave of discussion years after his passing? The answers, according to those following the story closely, appeared to lie within a series of estate instructions that had remained largely out of public conversation until recently. What began as a routine legal review soon transformed into something much larger. Reports suggested that executors revisiting certain estate documents uncovered provisions that immediately caught the attention of senior advisors. While details remained closely guarded, whispers began circulating through royal circles that a significant inheritance arrangement had been identified. Suddenly, a process that many expected to pass quietly through administrative channels became the subject of intense speculation. The atmosphere surrounding the discussions reportedly shifted almost overnight, with legal teams examining language that some believed could carry important implications for the future stewardship of Bagshot Park. The growing intrigue was fueled by one particularly surprising detail. Lady Louise Windsor's name allegedly emerged during the review in a way few had anticipated. For years, public assumptions regarding the future of Bagshot Park seemed straightforward. The estate had long been associated with Prince Edward and Sophie, making any alternative discussion appear unlikely. Yet the rumors refused to disappear. Instead, they intensified. Each new whisper seemed to raise fresh questions about Prince Philip's intentions and the careful planning that many believed characterized his approach to family matters. What made the situation even more fascinating was the suggestion that not everyone within the wider royal household had been fully aware of the details being examined. According to various accounts, Sophie herself may not have anticipated the direction these conversations would take. That possibility alone added another layer of mystery. Those who knew the Duchess of Edinburgh often described her as one of the most trusted and respected figures within the family. The notion that important elements of Philip's long-term plans could still generate surprise years later only deepened public curiosity. Meanwhile, palace observers began looking backward rather than forward. They revisited old stories, forgotten comments, and subtle moments that suddenly seemed far more significant than they once appeared. Every recollection involving Prince Philip and Lady Louise was examined through a new lens. Some wondered whether clues had been hiding in plain sight for years. Others questioned whether the Duke of Edinburgh had quietly been shaping a future that few around him fully understood at the time. Whatever the truth, one thing became increasingly clear. This was no longer simply a discussion about inheritance. It was becoming a story about legacy, trust, and the values Prince Philip chose to preserve long after he was gone. As speculation continued to build, attention gradually shifted away from the legal documents themselves and toward the deeper meaning behind them. Because for those who understood Prince Philip best, the true significance of Bagshot Park was never measured by its size, its status, or its financial value. Its importance ran much deeper than that, leading directly to the question that would soon dominate every conversation surrounding the estate. But the shock surrounding Bagshot Park could not be understood without first examining what the estate truly meant to Prince Philip and why it occupied such a special place in royal history. For decades, Bagshot Park was more than a royal residence. Hidden behind its gates was a place closely associated with duty, privacy, and family continuity. While grander estates often captured headlines, Bagshot quietly became one of the most important homes within the wider royal network. And according to those familiar with Philip's views, it represented something far more valuable than property. It represented stewardship. That distinction is what made the growing controversy so remarkable. In the days following reports that executors had revisited Prince Philip's estate instructions, conversations began shifting away from legal documents and toward the deeper meaning of Bagshot Park itself. Those who understood the history of the estate knew that it was never merely a place where members of the royal family lived. Instead, it became a symbol of continuity, a rare example of stability within an institution that had endured decades of change, scrutiny, and uncertainty. Long before speculation surrounding Lady Louise emerged, Bagshot had already established itself as one of the quiet pillars supporting the modern monarchy. Much of that identity was shaped through the lives of Prince Edward and Sophie. As the years passed, the estate became the center of their family life, providing a sense of normality that was often difficult to find within royal circles. While public attention frequently focused on more senior members of the family, Edward and Sophie built a reputation based on consistency, loyalty, and service. Their approach reflected many of the values Prince Philip admired throughout his own life. There was little interest in spectacle. There was little appetite for unnecessary attention. Instead, there was a commitment to responsibility, and Bagshot Park gradually became the physical representation of that commitment. Yet Prince Philip's connection to the estate ran even deeper. Throughout his life, he often viewed royal properties through a very different lens than many outsiders did. To him, these places were not trophies to be possessed or rewards to be distributed. They were obligations. They carried history, expectations, and duties that stretched far beyond a single generation. That philosophy shaped much of his thinking as he grew older. While others discussed privilege, Philip often focused on stewardship. While others saw status, he saw responsibility. And according to those familiar with his views, that distinction influenced many of the decisions he made regarding the future. It is perhaps here that Lady Louise's role becomes especially significant. Over the years, reports repeatedly suggested that Philip saw qualities in his granddaughter that reminded him of principles he valued most. Unlike many young members of prominent families, Louise developed a reputation for avoiding unnecessary attention. She appeared comfortable away from the spotlight, choosing a quieter path even when opportunities for greater visibility existed. That approach reportedly resonated with her grandfather. He admired practicality. He respected humility. Most importantly, he valued individuals who understood that duty often required sacrifice rather than recognition. As these stories resurfaced, many royal observers began revisiting moments that once seemed insignificant. Conversations that had attracted little notice suddenly appeared more meaningful. Family traditions shared between Philip and Louise gained renewed attention. The narrative slowly shifted from inheritance to intention. People were no longer asking what had been left behind. They were asking why. Why would Prince Philip place such importance on certain relationships? Why would his reported wishes create such intense interest years after his passing? And what did it reveal about how he viewed the future of the monarchy itself? Those questions only became more urgent as speculation continued to grow. Because if Bagshot Park represented stewardship rather than ownership, then any decision connected to its future carried implications far beyond a simple inheritance discussion. What emerged was a larger conversation about succession, responsibility, and the individuals Philip believed could be trusted to preserve what mattered most. And as attention turned toward Philip's final wishes, a deeper story began to emerge, one rooted in a bond many had underestimated for years. Unlike many royal stories driven by titles and publicity, this one centered on something far quieter. Over the years, observers repeatedly noted the unusually close connection between Prince Philip and Lady Louise. Whether through shared interests, private conversations, or time spent away from public attention, their relationship appeared built on mutual respect. It was a connection that would eventually take on extraordinary significance. As questions surrounding Bagshot Park continued to circulate, attention increasingly shifted toward the relationship that many believed sat at the heart of the entire story. For years, Lady Louise occupied a unique position within the royal family. She was connected to one of the most famous institutions in the world, yet she rarely appeared interested in the attention that came with it. While others often found themselves at the center of headlines, Louise developed a reputation for something far less dramatic, but perhaps far more important in Prince Philip's eyes. She became known for her quiet consistency. Those who followed the family closely often pointed to the strong bond that developed between Louise and her grandfather from an early age. It was not a relationship built on public appearances or ceremonial duties. Instead, it seemed to grow through shared experiences, common interests, and a mutual appreciation for life away from constant scrutiny. Over time, stories emerged describing how Philip took a particular interest in guiding Louise, offering advice and encouragement while helping her develop confidence in her own way. Unlike many assumptions often made about royal mentorship, this connection appeared rooted in character rather than status. What made the relationship stand out was the contrast between Louise's position and the choices she consistently made. Opportunities for greater public exposure existed. Greater recognition could have been pursued. Yet again and again, she appeared content remaining outside the spotlight. That decision earned respect from many observers and, according to long-standing reports, may have resonated deeply with Prince Philip himself. Throughout his life, he frequently emphasized the importance of service over celebrity. He valued practicality over performance. In many ways, Louise seemed to embody those same principles. As these discussions gained momentum, old family stories began resurfacing. Accounts of shared traditions, private conversations, and mutual interests suddenly carried new weight. What once seemed like ordinary family moments were now viewed through an entirely different lens. People began wondering whether Prince Philip had recognized something in Louise long before others did. Perhaps he saw a level-headedness that could not be taught. Perhaps he admired her ability to remain grounded despite growing up within extraordinary circumstances. Whatever the reason, the connection appeared stronger and more significant with every new detail that emerged. Family members reportedly understood this bond as well. While royal households often operate within layers of protocol and expectation, relationships built on genuine trust are not easily overlooked. Those closest to Philip are said to have recognized the confidence he placed in Louise, not because she sought approval, but because she never appeared driven by ambition. That distinction mattered. In an institution where public perception often shapes narratives, Louise's reluctance to chase attention may have become one of her greatest strengths. The deeper observers looked, the more a compelling possibility began to take shape. What if the discussions surrounding Bagshot Park were not simply about inheritance? What if they reflected years of careful consideration by a man known for thinking in terms of duty, continuity, and long-term responsibility? The possibility transformed the conversation. Suddenly, every reported provision, every estate discussion, and every reference to Philip's wishes seemed connected to a larger vision for the future. And yet, even as this narrative gained traction, uncertainty remained. The public still lacked crucial pieces of the puzzle. Questions continued to multiply. Was Philip's reported confidence in Louise truly reflected in the documents now under review? Had he quietly planned for a future role that few had anticipated? And if so, why were those plans only becoming apparent now? Those mysteries ensured that interest surrounding the story continued to grow, drawing more attention to the executors' findings with each passing day. Yet even as stories about their bond resurfaced, few expected the contents of the executors' review to trigger such intense debate across royal circles. The atmosphere reportedly changed the moment the relevant documents were presented. What began as a routine legal review quickly transformed into one of the most discussed inheritance stories in recent royal memory. According to emerging accounts, provisions linked to Philip's wishes appeared to indicate a future path for Bagshot Park that differed dramatically from public assumptions, and that revelation left many scrambling for answers. The questions that had been building for days suddenly acquired a new sense of urgency. Until that point, much of the discussion surrounding Prince Philip's legacy had been driven by speculation, fragments of information, and interpretations of past relationships. But the reported emergence of previously overlooked provisions changed everything. The conversation was no longer centered solely on what Philip may have wanted. Attention shifted toward what he may have formally documented. That distinction transformed curiosity into genuine intrigue, drawing legal experts, royal commentators, and palace insiders into a debate that seemed to grow larger with every passing hour. According to accounts circulating among royal observers, executors reviewing the relevant materials encountered instructions that prompted immediate examination. While details remained carefully guarded, reports suggested that certain provisions appeared inconsistent with assumptions that had been accepted for years. The possibility that aspects of Philip's long-term planning had remained largely unnoticed created an atmosphere of uncertainty throughout royal circles. Questions emerged rapidly. Had crucial elements been misunderstood? Had certain intentions only become fully apparent through a comprehensive review? Or had Philip deliberately structured his plans to reveal their significance only over time? As legal advisors reportedly began studying the language more closely, attention turned toward understanding the purpose behind the provisions themselves. This was not merely a discussion about ownership. It was a discussion about stewardship, continuity, and responsibility. Every interpretation seemed to point back to the same fundamental question. What future had Philip envisioned for Bagshot Park? Those seeking answers found themselves examining not only the wording of the documents but also the values that had guided the Duke of Edinburgh throughout his life. The more they looked, the more the issue appeared connected to principles rather than possessions. Before long, one name began dominating nearly every conversation: Lady Louise Windsor. What had initially seemed like a peripheral possibility gradually moved to the center of the story. Her previously discussed bond with Prince Philip suddenly appeared far more relevant. Observers who had once viewed those stories as touching family anecdotes began reconsidering them through an entirely different lens. If Philip had indeed planned carefully for the future, then perhaps those years of mentorship, trust, and shared values carried greater significance than anyone had previously understood. The growing attention inevitably reached senior palace officials. Reports indicated that efforts were made to clarify the implications of the provisions and understand how they aligned with broader royal arrangements. Yet the more clarification people sought, the more fascination seemed to grow. Every answer generated additional questions. Every explanation appeared to open another avenue of speculation. What had started as a legal review was evolving into something much larger, a conversation about legacy itself. Outside royal circles, public interest surged. Commentators debated possible outcomes. Long-forgotten stories about Philip and Louise resurfaced. Discussions about royal estates, succession planning, and family expectations filled newspaper columns and online forums. The mystery surrounding the documents became almost as compelling as the documents themselves. People were drawn not only to the inheritance aspect of the story, but also to the deeper emotional narrative unfolding beneath it. At its heart stood a grandfather's legacy, a granddaughter's unexpected prominence, and a future that suddenly seemed far less predictable than anyone had imagined. Yet amid the growing speculation, one issue began attracting more attention than any legal provision or estate arrangement. Because while commentators focused on Philip's intentions and Louise's possible role, many observers found themselves wondering about someone else entirely. If these reports were accurate, if the assumptions surrounding Bagshot Park were truly being challenged, then how would the person most closely associated with the estate respond? That question soon became impossible to ignore. But while attention focused on the legal implications, another question began dominating the conversation. How would Sophie react to a development nobody appeared to anticipate? Few figures within the royal family had stronger ties to Bagshot Park than Sophie. For years, it had been the family home she helped shape alongside Prince Edward. That is why reports surrounding Philip's wishes generated such widespread surprise. Observers were not shocked because of conflict. They were shocked because the revelation seemed to alter assumptions that had remained unchallenged for decades. As debate surrounding the Executors' review intensified, attention naturally turned towards Sophie and Edward. For decades, Bagshot Park had represented stability, family, and continuity. It was where memories were created, traditions were preserved, and a quieter branch of the royal family built its identity away from constant public scrutiny. That history made the emerging reports especially unexpected. Yet according to many accounts, the reaction within royal circles was defined less by disagreement and more by reflection. The central question was not who deserved the estate, but what Prince Philip had truly intended. Behind the speculation, many observers began focusing on the values that guided Philip throughout his life. To those who knew his approach to duty, property was rarely about ownership. It was about stewardship. Status mattered less than responsibility. Recognition mattered less than service. That philosophy led many royal watchers to revisit Philip's close relationship with Lady Louise. Over the years, she had developed a reputation for humility, discretion, and a willingness to avoid unnecessary attention. Those qualities mirrored many of the principles Philip spent a lifetime defending. As family discussions reportedly continued, Prince Edward was said to play an important role in maintaining balance between present realities and future possibilities. Whatever the precise details of Philip's wishes, preserving family unity appeared far more important than fueling division. The conversation gradually evolved from inheritance to legacy. Why would Philip reportedly place such significance on Louise? For many, the answer seemed increasingly clear. He may have seen in her the same quiet commitment to duty that had defined much of his own life. Public fascination grew because the story touched something deeper than royal property arrangements. It raised questions about the future of the monarchy itself. In an era often dominated by publicity and attention, Philip's reported decision appeared to reward patience, responsibility, and service above all else. That possibility prompted a broader reassessment of Lady Louise's place within the royal family and a growing appreciation for the long-term planning that many believed characterized Philip's final years. As reactions settled and emotions gave way to reflection, the focus shifted away from ownership and toward meaning. The true significance of the story was no longer where Bagshot Park might ultimately belong, but what Prince Philip may have been trying to communicate through his final act of trust. And as the significance of the revelation became clearer, attention turned toward how it could reshape perceptions of the younger generation of royals. For years, Lady Louise largely remained outside the relentless spotlight that followed many other members of the royal family. Yet the inheritance story changed that almost overnight. Suddenly, discussions that once focused on senior royals began centering on a young woman whose quiet approach had earned admiration from those who valued substance over spectacle. As the debate surrounding Bagshot Park continued to unfold, something unexpected happened. The conversation gradually shifted away from legal documents, inheritance provisions, and estate arrangements. Instead, it became a story about character. For years, Lady Louise had maintained a remarkably low profile despite belonging to one of the most recognizable families in the world. While other young royals often found themselves at the center of public discussion, Louise built a reputation based on responsibility, privacy, and a willingness to let her actions speak louder than her title. That reputation suddenly placed her at the heart of a much larger conversation about the future of the monarchy. Many royal supporters began viewing the reported wishes of Prince Philip through a different lens. To them, this was never simply about property, it was about legacy. Throughout his life, Philip repeatedly emphasized service, discipline, and commitment to duty. Those values shaped not only his own journey but also the guidance he offered to younger generations. As stories about his close relationship with Louise resurfaced, many observers concluded that he may have seen in her a continuation of those same principles. Her reluctance to seek attention, her practical outlook, and her steady approach to responsibility seemed to reflect qualities he respected deeply. The growing public interest also prompted comparisons with other younger members of the royal family. Yet what distinguished Louise was not popularity or prominence, it was consistency. In an age where visibility often defines influence, she appeared to represent something different. She embodied a quieter model of service, one rooted in patience rather than publicity. That distinction resonated strongly with many people who followed the royal family. Suddenly, conversations about her future role began appearing across royal commentary, with increasing numbers of observers wondering whether Philip had long recognized a potential that others had overlooked. At the same time, attention returned to the wider family. Through every stage of the speculation, Sophie and Edward remained closely associated with the values that Bagshot Park had come to symbolize. Their focus on stability and family unity reinforced the broader message many believed Philip intended to leave behind. Whatever the precise details of his wishes, the larger lesson appeared increasingly clear. Stewardship mattered more than status. Responsibility mattered more than recognition. Legacy was built through actions rather than attention. Long after the meetings concluded and the speculation faded, one truth remained impossible to ignore. Prince Philip spent a lifetime championing responsibility, endurance, and quiet commitment to duty. Whether Bagshot Park ultimately becomes Lady Louise's future home or simply serves as a symbol of his confidence in her, the revelation has transformed how many view his final legacy. More than anything else, it has reminded people that the most enduring influence often comes not through grand gestures, but through values passed carefully from one generation to the next. And perhaps that is the most remarkable part of all, not the estate itself, but the enduring power of a grandfather's faith in the future generation entrusted to carry his legacy forward. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.